I work in the film industry. Now that's a statement that feels like having a superpower, the ultimate conversation starter. It's like you don't have to explain it. Red carpet premieres, visiting shoot locations, attending film festivals in Cannes, Berlin, Toronto, discussing storylines and even financing options with producers, directors, and sometimes A-list actors. That's all part of it, but it's actually a small part. In this video and a couple of other ones, I'm going to share with you what this role and this business is about. It was May of 2016. After it took me probably a year and a bit pursuing this sort of role, I landed a dream job and became responsible for determining what content would be included in the Prime Video subscription service here in the UK. That is a different focus from films or TV series you would buy or rent on your TV, for example. That distinction already points to several aspects of what it means to monetize content, because there are some very specific rules and methods around how that actually happens. So, for any project or any product to generate a return, you monetize it over time. And in most cases, you would aim to charge each customer the highest price they're willing to pay, a reflection of how they value your product or service. Those timely instances when you charge different customers a different price, in this case, are called licensing windows. And the traditional sequence of windows a movie goes through is this. Let's say you're a distributor, which is like being a car rental company and your fancy new car is on offer. You rent that vehicle out to different people at different times and charge them accordingly. The start of your first rental period, and I'm going to bring this back to movies now, is when it gets released in cinemas on day X. We aptly call that the start of the theatrical release window. You can do that in a select few theaters or in many, which means you go wide with big chains like AMC or Cinemax. That is in part determined by how much of your budget you have set aside for so-called P&A, which is short for print and advertising. Print used to refer to the cost of actually printing the film, the individual stills or images on a roll of 35mm celluloid, kind of a fancy chemical tape, highly flammable, that would cost several $1,000s or pounds or euros per theater. And just for reference, a printed 120-minute film would weigh around 55 pounds or 25 kilos, so that was literally a heavy undertaking. In the digital world, I have hard drives that get sent out, basically several hundred gigabytes of JPEGs, which are played in sequence. For the people who run the theater, the exhibitor, to even show your film, the assumption is that enough customers will show up to watch it. That would be the point of the advertising part in print and advertising, to drive awareness or create enough buzz and press coverage that includes hosting reviewers, glitzy red carpet premieres, the cast and directors attending media events, so-called press junkets, and exclusive interviews on talk shows and so on. That theatrical window, and regardless of whether the film plays in theaters the entire time or not, that window usually lasts around 4 to 6 months. What comes next is your home entertainment window and transactional video on demand or electronic sell-through known as TVOD or EST. That's when the film gets released on Blu-ray and DVD and then also becomes accessible digitally on demand to rent or buy a few days later after the DVD release. Your price now isn't per person anymore, the 10-15 quid you pay for a ticket, but per screen. You pay £3.50 to rent or £12 to buy, for example, and everyone in your household gets to see it. You now also have a wider reach, having access to a greater audience that may not have been able to go to a theater when your film was showing there. Similar to your theatrical window, the home entertainment window, as it is called, or home ent, is somewhere around 4 to 6 months. And following that is where subscription video on demand, SVOD, services like Netflix, Prime Video, Sky Entertainment, Mubi, etc. get their turn. They now serve an audience that is not keen on paying a specific fee per film, like when renting or buying, and is fine to wait a little longer to have it offered to them as part of their monthly subscription. There are normally 2 sequential pay windows, aptly named Pay 1 and Pay 2, both around 6 to 12 months in length. Sometimes there's even a third pay window called, you guessed it, Pay 3. For example, in the UK, Sky may have a film from a studio and Pay 1, and then Netflix or Prime Video or Mubi license that same film during the later Pay 2 or potentially Pay 3 windows. What's relevant here is that these windows hold exclusive licensing rights. So only one party has the content on their service in a given window and pays for that exclusivity. Needless to say, the later the window, the cheaper it gets to license the content, but you also lose a bit of the momentum of customers wanting to see a film that was released in theaters 2 years ago, as opposed to a fresh 8 months ago. Following those pay windows normally is free TV. As a customer, you may not pay any fee, no rent, buy, or monthly subscription, but you certainly pay old school with your time watching ads. And lastly, the retirement slot of window licensing, the library window. That's when anyone can license the title exclusively or non-exclusively for a fraction of what you would have paid for in Pay 1 some 3 years earlier. Now, instead of a distributor, let's say you're the person responsible for all films on a streaming service like I was, and you have to figure out A, what, and B, when to license specific content, and C, how much to pay for it. In other words, what it would be worth to you as a licensee.